How do you give advice in English? Today we're going to look at 3 common verbs and how to use them in sentences. Hello and welcome to another lesson on OET grammar. I'm Sharon and I'm so glad you've joined me again today. This lesson is brought to you by Benchmark Education Solutions. First, we're going to start with a quick review of the active voice and what it is. It just means that the subject is doing the verb. Here's some examples. Jane mailed the letter. In this active sentence, the subject is performing the action. The letter was mailed by Jane. In this passive sentence, the subject is having the action done to it by someone else. So today we're going to talk about how to give advice in the active voice to your patients. You will probably have to do this in your OET writing and speaking subtests. We're going to look at 3 verbs: advise, suggest, and recommend. These 3 words are often used when we provide some form of advice, but each is used in a little different way. Let's look at the verb advise first. When you use this verb in an active sentence, it is usually followed by an object pronoun such as you, him, or her. For instance, you might say, I advise you to get your eyes tested. Or in the past tense, we might say or write, I advised him to quit smoking, or we advised her to get a second opinion. Do you remember the difference between a subject pronoun and an object pronoun? Here's a quick review of these pronouns. Notice that the subject and object pronouns for the word you are the same. That makes it a little easier, don't you think? Just remember that when you use the verb advise, it should be followed by an object pronoun. Now let's look at suggest and recommend. These should not be followed by an object pronoun. That means we'll need to write our sentences a little differently than we did for the verb advise. For instance, we can say, I advise you to get your eyes tested. This is correct, but we can't say, I suggest you to get your eyes tested. The correct way to use suggest and recommend is to follow these verbs with the word that. Then we'll use the subject pronoun, such as he or she or you. I suggest that you get your eyes tested. Here's another example. I advise him to quit smoking, and this is correct, but I recommend him to quit smoking is not correct. We have to say, I recommend that he quit smoking. We advised her to get a second opinion. This is correct. We suggested her to get a second opinion is not correct. We need to say instead, we suggested that she get a second opinion. Recommend works the same way as suggest. We recommended her to get a second opinion is not correct. We need to say instead, we recommended that she get a second opinion. Did you notice that the verb you want the patient to do is in its base form? This is the basic form of the verb without any s, ed, ing, or any other ending attached. We can say, I recommend that he quit smoking, but we can't say, I recommend that he quits smoking, or I recommend that he quitting smoking. Neither of those sentences is correct. The same goes for the word suggest, or its past tense form suggested. For example, we should say, we suggested that she get a second opinion. We can't say gets and we can't say getting. Just use the base form of the verb. There's one more thing to notice, and I bet you already did. We dropped the word to before the verb. Here's an example. I advise you to get your eyes tested. That's correct. But when we use suggest, we drop the to. I suggest that you get your eyes tested. I recommend that you get your eyes tested. Here's another example. I advise him to quit smoking. I suggested that he quit smoking. I recommend that he quit smoking. How are you doing with that? Pretty easy, right? Once you learn how these verbs work, you can use these sentences again and again. Now I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to give you a sentence and you're going to change it using the word on the screen. I'll do the first one for you. Look at this original sentence. I advised him to start taking medication for his condition. Notice again the word advised here is in the past tense. If we were to use the word recommend instead, the new sentence should be, still in the past tense, I recommended that he start taking medication for his condition. Now you try. You can pause the video if you need more time. Here's the next sentence. I advised her to reduce her alcohol intake. Use the word recommend. We need the past tense. I recommended that she reduce her alcohol intake. Try the next one. This one's in the present tense, and we're going to use the word suggest instead, but it works the same way. I advise you to call an ambulance immediately if it happens again. Use the word suggest. I suggest that you call an ambulance immediately if it happens again. Did you get that right? Now let's do it the other way around. I recommended that he return for a follow-up appointment. Use the word advise. I advised him to return for a follow-up appointment. Great job! I hope today's lesson helped you understand more on how to give active advice to your patients. Make sure you join us for part 2 of this lesson, how to give passive advice. Check out our website, edubenchmark.com, for more on the OET. We have courses, services, and articles that will help you pass your exam. Thanks for joining me. Be sure to leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought of this video and how we can help you better. And we'll see you in the next lesson.